Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Paul Lamar Hunter, author of No Love, No Charity, The Success of the 19th Child. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Toronto, Canada, and I am with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Paul Lamar Hunter. He's the author of No Love, No Charity, The Success of the 19th Child. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you for having me on, and I'm very excited to share a positive story.
Love it.
Well, great. Especially from your backgrounds. I mean, I was reading your bio, living conditions, had the children eating beans, cornbread, ramen noodles, and occasionally breath mints.
Yes. You have to understand that it was some tough times in the Hunter family, and we managed to survive. Through the community and people that wanted to help an extraordinary, unique family.
And that was extraordinary because 21 children, that is unheard of, really, quite often in our generations, like the last two, really, I think.
Yes. My mother, she actually birthed 21 natural children by my dad. There was no adoption whatsoever. She birthed 21 natural children by my dad. The amazing thing is that she stayed pregnant for 15 years and 9 months. So, if you look at some of the NBA teams like the Lakers, like the Chicago Bulls, my mother actually won more championships than the Chicago Bulls and also the Los Angeles Lakers because she birthed 21 children. And the amazing part about this story is there are 63 grandchildren and 87 great-grandchildren. So, hey,
Oh my gosh.
you can't mess with me. You really can't mess with me at this particular time in my life.
Well, I think what's interesting is it was your mom and your dad. It wasn't like 3 marriages or whatever.
Yes,
Right?
it was actually my mom and dad. If you remember the song, turn off the lights, doom, doom, and light a candle, doom, 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 doom. So my mom and dad got it on basically every day, probably 2 times a day.
So I'm curious, what are the, you said 15 months, what are the age ranges of the 21 children?
Right now, my baby sister is 47 years old, and the oldest child, which is the first child, she is 70 years old.
Wow. That's wow.
Yeah. I cannot imagine a family that size. I mean, where would you live? I mean, just like you say, trying to eat dinner or breakfast. I mean, it would be crazy.
Let me tell this story. My mother was pregnant with the 14th child. They were living in a 2-bedroom house at that particular time. A knock at the door from the sheriff officer came over and told them that my mom and dad had 72 hours to leave because there was too many children and people living in that 2-bedroom house. My mother and dad went to church, prayed about it. The next day, a miracle happened. A man came knocking at the door, wanted to show my mom and dad an 18-bedroom house. He took my mom and dad over there to look at the 18-bedroom house, and he said, this house is for you guys and your family. It's only going to cost you $1. Do you hear what I said? $1.
Wow.
My mom and dad did not have the money because my dad didn't get paid until Friday. So the man went in his wallet and gave my mom and dad that $1, and they paid that man $1 for that house. So when you read my book, No Love, No Charity, The Success of the 19th Child, you're going to see miracle after miracle after miracle.
That's incredible.
That is. That's
Well,
beautiful.
first of all, I can't imagine an 18-bedroom house. I mean, number one, much less somebody giving it to you for $1,
Yes.
you know.
It's definitely a godsend. And you were talking about success and how you're changing that view, and the Hunter family was going to be successful. How are your siblings doing? You're obviously you're doing super well. You've been on TV. You've got books written. How are your siblings doing along with this? I mean, looking at up to their 19th of the scale and going, wow.
Well, my siblings, they have their own little big and small success that is going on in their life at this particular moment. A lot of them work. I have a brother that's a pastor. I have a brother that's a truck driver. I have some sisters that had worked in the factory business, and a lot of them are retired. And they have their own lives right now, and majority of them are enjoying their retirement right now. So yeah, they are doing some extraordinary things. So I'm excited about them, and I'm excited about myself, because I'm continuing to knock on doors and just get an opportunity to come on people platforms and share a positive story to inspire people, to give them hope, to let them know that your purpose is bigger than your circumstances. And that's the way I look at life. I don't magnify my circumstances, I magnify my purpose. And that's what really carried me over the finish line. And that's why I was able to graduate from college, to become the first to graduate from college, Upper Iowa University, in 2012. And I have a bachelor's of science in business administration, and I am moving forward with my degree.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you've got to be an inspiration to your family, number one, but others as well, that think they can't do it because of the way they grew up, because of the way they were raised, because of the living standards they were in, and you can show them, yes, you can. You can not only make it, you can excel, you can exceed.
Oh, most definitely. And that's the reason why I have to emphasize that when people magnify their circumstances, a lot of times they get down, they get depressed. But I tell kids all the time, I say, you look at my story. I grew up in poverty. And what really helped is positive men and women from the church, from the community. They always came knocking at the Hunter family door to leave hand-me-down clothes, to leave food, to leave toys. There was a time when we didn't even have a Christmas tree or any toys for Christmas, but somebody, knocked at that door and left a Christmas tree and left toys for the Hunter family. And that's the reason why I'm grateful for people in the city of Racine, Wisconsin, because they have always looked out for the Hunter family.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. Do you find that nowadays? Do you find that people are charitable now like they were to you then?
Well, I think now we live in a different society, because I was born in 1970, and so we knew each other. I'm talking about the next door neighbor. We knew Mrs. Jones. We knew Mrs. Smith. We knew the family. We all worked together as a unit. And so if I would get in trouble, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Smith had the opportunity to discipline me. And then my mom and dad would find out, and then they would discipline me as well. So it was very close back then. Today, I think that we have a cynical generation. We don't even know our next door neighbors. They don't want to interact with us. They have their own little world. They in their own little bubble. And the majority of the time, people are on their cell phones. They don't really have interpersonal skills anymore, And so we are a totally different generation from the 70s up until now.
Yeah, I always tell that story. Sorry, I was just gonna say, just always tell that story. I still can't believe it, like being in restaurants and watching the young couples sitting on their phone. Gosh, put that thing down and talk.
Yeah. Well, see, I grew up in the 50s and 60s. So, you would like the neighbors watched out for you. And, like I say, they need to take care of business. They did. And when you got home, you got it again.
Yeah.
But we did. We knew our neighbors. Everybody was friendly. You'd go out and sit on front porches. We didn't have decks back then. It was all front porches and all that stuff. And that was a really awesome time to grow up compared to now.
And the parents agreed with that, though. They agreed with, if I was over at a friend's place and I was not acting proper and the mother reprimanded me for it. Nowadays, if you do that, the kid goes crying to the mummy and the mummy gets mad at the mother who reprimanded their child for doing something wrong. Like, it's like so overly protective. I won't say all parents are like that, but there is sort of a trend towards that. Don't talk to my kids that way. Well,
Yeah.
they did something wrong. But back then my mother goes, yes, good. Hey, thank you. Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
Now, your mother was involved in a homeless shelter. Is that correct?
Yes, my mother started the first homeless shelter. Now, the homeless shelter got started in 1970. I was in the room at that particular time. That shelter stayed active for 45 years before it closed, because my mom got very old and she could not do the work anymore, and none of my siblings or the grandchildren wanted to do that work. So she started the first homeless shelter in the state of Wisconsin. So that was a unbelievable and extraordinary move to start a homeless shelter to look out for men and women that was less fortunate than the Hunter family.
That's interesting to me. To me, it's a real testament to your mom.
Yes.
After that, after growing up or raising you kids and being in poverty, for her to give back, running that homeless shelter. I mean, that says volumes about her.
Yeah, that homeless shelter, I can say, was a blessing, because as a young teenager, I was able to interact with a lot of homeless men and women. And the extraordinary thing that they had taught me was to always get an education. Do not do drugs, do not do alcohol, because if you do, you're going to get addicted to it. And then you are going to be at a homeless shelter, and I learned that from a lot of the homeless men and women. And they taught me the importance of going to school, being positive, and going out in society and giving back to society. That's the reason why I always go to the Boys and Girls Club and speak life into at-risk student, because I was considered at risk to go to jail, to go to prison, at risk to fail. But look, I did not fail. I am a success story. I am a success story, and other people need to hear my story, because this story will motivate them to take their game spiritually, academically, financially to the next level in life.
If you don't mind me asking, we hear a lot about, the Black men, they don't take care of their families and all this stuff. Let me ask you, from your perspective, are you finding more and more Black men, going to school, taking care of their families, not getting on drugs, not getting in gangs?
Yeah, there's a lot of Black positive men out there that are doing extraordinary things. But what we want to do is highlight one negative or two negative. But there are great Black men out in our community that are doing extraordinary things, that are working, going to school, taking care of their children. Even they might be separated from their wives, or they co-parenting together. But there are extraordinary men of color that are out there doing extraordinary things, but the story is just being overlooked. That's the reason why.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And in the sense, though, on the other side of it, there's, and let's move it to the white side, there's a lot of stories that are being overlooked about deadbeat dads. I mean, I'm sorry, I have a sister who went through that. And yet those are not spoken to as much, which is kind of sad in our society, that they should all be, here it is. These are the great positives, but this is not just for, like you said, the stories are overlooked, and that's a little bit of unfairness in this world.
Yes, yes, it is.
And
Yep.
something interesting you said about co-parenting, because there's more people divorced than there are married now. I think it's a higher percentage of divorces or not married than married, and so these guys, and I'm not talking about just black men, but I'm talking about everybody, that they don't want to mess with the kids, they don't want to do this stuff, but yet you have those that are stepping up, they're helping out, they're seeing their kids, they're involved with their kids. They may not be married or with the woman again, but they're still involved. They're that positive role model.
Yes, yes. And let me say this. I used to work for Chrysler engine plant in 2010. When that plant had closed, I decided to go back to college, graduated. The mother of my children in 2010 took my kids and moved to San Antonio, Texas. So I was in an accelerated program, and we would go 8 weeks and then we'll take 1 week off. So what I did was, on that 9th week, I would jump on the plane and go to San Antonio, Texas, and see my kids. Stay there for the whole week, jump back on the plane, go back to college. And I told my kids that once I graduate, that I was going to get on that plane and head to San Antonio, Texas. And that's what I did. I lost my father at the age of 8 years old. And ever since my 4 children came into this world, I always been attached to my children. I taught my children how to read. I taught my children how to write. I was their basketball coach. I was their football coach. I did activities with my children. So like I said, I consider myself an extraordinary dad, because when the mother of my children moved my kids to San Antonio, Texas, I made that decision to get on a plane once I graduate to be with my kids. And I was there when my kids played sports in high school. I was there when all of my kids graduated high school. That's what a father do. I did not have any resources. I did not have any friends in San Antonio, Texas, but you know what? I made it happen.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely wonderful.
Considering your circumstances, you really, you've really did make a difference, not only for yourself, but all the other people, your family, the people you speak to, talking to these boys and girls clubs and stuff. That is so awesome. Your parents, they did one amazing job.
Hey, thank you. That's the reason why I'm going to continue to, make appearances at the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers and Sisters. Any youth that is that any youth organizations that is dealing with at-risk students, I'm going to continue to knock on their door and just share my story, how I grew up in the inner city, how I was told that I would never become anything in life, and how I changed the paradigm of what other people thought of me, and how I look at myself as a confident, bold man. And you should look at yourself as a confident and bold young lady or young man.
Absolutely. What was it that we had yesterday? Somebody on the podcast who so beautifully said, and I won't be able to quote it, so I'm going to say it in the sense that don't let anybody tell you something and define yourself by what somebody else tells you. Something like that. And it's so true, because as we're growing up, what was that, Roy?
Don't let somebody else define you.
Yeah.
You define yourself.
And as you're growing up, that's sometimes a tough thing. If somebody says, oh, you're never going to make it, or you're, this and that, and you don't have, and luckily you had a very supportive community around you, but not everybody does. And like Roy said, you either take it as a challenge to say, I'm going to show you, or you can ruin your life by saying, yeah, they're right, and go blah, 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 right? So That's the whole thing. You had obviously a very supportive and loving family, which is very great, but not everybody has that. So it's nice to have people like you out there saying, you know, don't listen. This is what you can become.
Yes, 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 yes. And let me say this about my book, No Love, No Charity, The Success of the 19th Child. It has been adapted into a screenplay. Tailflick Production, they had wrote the page pitch, and at this moment it has been pitched to Netflix, Lionsgate, Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers. So anything can happen at this moment. And so we are continuing to negotiate a fantastic deal, not only for me, but for other people that is involved in this big projects, because one day you're going to sit back and tell your kids, your friends, your grandchildren, hey, I had the opportunity to interview this guy, and now we're going to see his movie.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
Congratulations, man.
yeah,
Congratulations.
that is huge. That's awesome. I'm really looking out for that because yes, and getting out your message even further to a larger, you know, for those people who like to binge on Netflix. Now, would this be an actual movie or would it be a series?
It would be. It would just be a movie of my life combined with my mother and father life, of where they came from and how my mom birthed 21 natural children. See, if you're going to do a movie, and like I told them, we have to start at the root, with the root, and then we work our way on up. Just don't tell it about me, but also tell it about my mom as well. So it's going to be incorporated. My mom life story incorporated with my life story as well.
Beautiful.
So, Paul, I've got to ask you, you spoke to a lot of people, different walks of life, kids, everybody. Has any one particular person came back to you and thanked you for what you said to them that motivated them to do something that really kind of touched you?
Yes, it was a young man in my hometown, in the city of Racine, Wisconsin. I had the opportunity to talk to him, and I never knew that my words was going to impact his life. And I just saw that he was in trouble as a teenager, and so I just told him that this is not the route or the journey or the road that you want to cross in life. And I began to share my story and tell him, listen, I grew up in poverty. I saw a lot of men and women went to jail. I don't want to see you go to jail or go to prison. And I remember years ago, I was back home, and the young man saw me, and he wanted to touch base with me and let me know that those words really encourage him. And he's a college graduate now. You understand? So
Wow.
so you have to speak life into people lives, because that's what's going to motivate them, that's what's going to keep them focused, and that's what's going to make them put their purpose above their circumstances.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, that's so rewarding, to know you touch somebody's life that way, just doing what you're doing, right?
Yes, and I'm gonna continue to do it. I want to thank Breakaway Daily Magazine, which is an international magazine. And last year in October 2020, they featured me on the front cover of their magazine. And that title was Never Give Up. What a title to give.
No kidding.
Yeah, what a title to give
Awesome.
the 19th child out of 21 children. Never give up.
That is awesome. So where can our listeners get your book?
They can get my book at Barnes and Nobles, Amazon.com, any bookstore you can get my book, or you can visit my website, paullamarhunter.com. I am available for speaking engagements and book signings as well.
Okay.
Great story. Really appreciate you sharing this with us.
Yeah, no kidding.
And congratulations on everything. And seriously, I will be praying for that to happen quickly for your movie, because I can't wait to watch it.
Oh, okay. But you know what? I want to end by saying this about my story. My story doesn't end in defeat, but in victory. There may be some setbacks in my life at times when it looked impossible. But, my God, he looked out for me. So you may think that your circumstances are permanent, like being poor, uneducated, and not having enough money. But those things are temporary. And with God's help, you will overcome your obstacles. You will rise higher, accomplish your dreams, and reach the fullness of your destiny.
Beautiful.
Wow.
One final question to that. We talk about poor poverty, but did you ever really feel poor?
Yes, I did feel poor. There was times when the electricity was disconnected because my mom and dad didn't have enough money. There were times when we didn't have no food. There were times when we had to eat basically beans and cornbread every day for morning, lunch, and dinner. There was time when we had biscuits and syrup. So it was some very rough times, but those rough times in my life did not define my siblings or me. You understand? Because we have a positive attitude about life. And there are some people that may be experiencing some difficult times, but they have a nasty attitude about life. If they have a mindset that is just temporary, the storm will pass by. The sun will rise again.
And this is why I asked this, because to me, there's a little bit of a difference between feeling the poverty and feeling poor.
Mhm.
Because where I talk about poor is where there's the support and the love. I personally have gone through some rough times, never felt poor, felt the poverty, didn't feel poor. Now mine was not to the extent of you, but if you
Yes.
understand that difference, it sounds to me that you had the poverty, but you did not have a poor life in regards to abundance and support and love.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And that's the reason why I say that I give a lot of credit to the people in the community, especially the churches, the food banks, these different organizations that are still active today, and I'm a type of person that I like to give back to the community. I really do. I am a community man. And that's who I am. I am a community man because somebody gave to me when I was young. Somebody fed me when I was poor.
Yeah.
So I am a community man.
Paul, keep doing what you're doing. You're a remarkable man, and you have some absolutely amazing parents. You are very fortunate.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing your story. We appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, I had a great time.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.